Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and welcome to Stroke Buddies Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. We have these meetings every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, although the next 2 weeks it's going to be on Monday in 2 weeks and next week at 11:30 instead of 11. We post these on my YouTube channel so people who can't make it can watch. We're trying to develop content that's meaningful, that might be able to help you in your recovery or help you understand more about your stroke and what you're dealing with. And today we're honored to have a friend of mine named John Lummis. Yeah, it's an honor, John. And John's I guess you're coming up on 8 years.
Yeah, 7.5 now.
Eight in December, if I remember right.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And John's one of those people that just wasn't going to lay there and take it. There are a number of us here in this group, and that's part of the group, is to try and inspire people as to how those of us who have managed to get better, got better, and what it takes. And John's one of those, I used to call them pay it forward people until yesterday in Michelle's group. Suddenly out of my mouth came veterans, stroke veterans. And I think that one might stick. So John's a stroke veteran. I first got onto him. Well, he and Michelle have a group called Stroke Sweat Squad. And together, and I became aware of John through that group and through he posted some videos and some comments, and I agreed with his comments and I liked his videos, and I could see that he was somebody who um, was an adapter, somebody who figured out how to make it work one way or another for himself, and then therefore and shared it with other people. So I invited him here today to tell a little bit about his story, but also for us to talk a little bit about some of the things that were key in his story that became key in his recovery, and how you might go about having the attitude and setting up a program at home and adapting exercises and all the things that you need to do in order to work on getting better outside of physical therapy, because a lot of us here believe that physical therapy is not enough. So that's the world's longest introduction, John. And why don't we just start with you telling us a little bit about your story, what happened to you, and how you dealt with it, and at least the beginnings of how you managed to come back.
Sure. Well, I thought I want to thank everybody for letting me get in this group for today for the discussion. Again, my name is John Lummis. I had my stroke December 25th, 2013, and actually 26th, the day after Christmas. I was sitting at my desk at work, and I thought more or less I was having a heart attack because my left arm was going numb, or it was actually weighed extremely heavy. I couldn't move it. So I was thinking numbness. So I started concentrating on breathing to get as much oxygen in my lungs as possible. Then when my son called me on the phone about doing something to his truck over the weekend, he couldn't understand my speech. So when I used speech, I knew it was at that point, it was a stroke. I was a volunteer firefighter / EMT for the local town I'm in. So I knew some of the signs would come about. And so I typed on my computer screen stroke in case somebody walked in my office. I knew what would happen to me in case I passed out, because I had no idea what would come next. So my wife was coming for lunch that day, and she showed up about 5 minutes later. And she said, "Well, get in the truck and I'll just run you to the hospital." I said, "I can't move. I can't walk." She says, "Okay." So she yelled, and the office I worked in was just another guy and myself. She yelled at him to call an ambulance because I had a stroke. And she was actually talking to my big boss up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and he acknowledged that he probably just had a stroke. So they called the ambulance. The ambulance came in. They wheeled in a cart and says, "Hey, we can't get the cart into your office. Can you get up and walk?" I got up and walked and sat in the ambulance. So the stroke was intermittent, or the loss of my left side was intermittent. It was an ischemic stroke deep in next to my emotional center. So they were worried about me the entire time in rehab about my emotions. I'm going, I don't need to talk to the psychologist. I went on the floor of the physical therapist. So they wouldn't argue with me. They said, "Go, get out of here." but let us know. We have medication if you need it. Well, no, we're not playing medication games. So as I got evaluated there and was in my rehab, I thought all I ever know about people having stroke is they whittle away sitting in a chair doing nothing. So I thought my life was over until I met the physical therapist that decided to drill my butt every day. And they said, you're not to allow anyone to help you. You have to figure it out yourself. Well, that just started me on my journey right there. I wouldn't let anybody touch me, do anything I was supposed to do. I did it myself. Was transfer from the wheelchair to the bed, back from the bed to the wheelchair, clothing myself every night. I mean, I laid my stuff out the night before, had the stuff ready to go in the morning. They nurse come in and flip the light on. I change clothes, go in the bathroom, get cleaned up, head down for breakfast. I mean, I was supposed to be in there 24 days. They kicked me out after 18 days to go home. You've already completed everything here. You're doing everything you're supposed to do. And I started outpatient therapy for the next year at RHI in Indianapolis, which was a wonderful facility, and at IU Robotics, which was more or less working my arm and my shoulder as much as they could work with that one. So the therapists are what gave me my life back. So this then comes in the costumes. I was involved in a advanced therapy study at RHI where we did an hour every day for 30 days. It was 20 minutes treadmill, 20 minutes stairs, 20 minutes across ground. By day 3, they had a 60-pound weight vest on me. I was walking stairs 2 at a time. If I put my hand on the rail, I was getting my hand smacked, so take my hand off the rail. The treadmill, they had me up to 10 kilometers an hour for 30 seconds at a time. I thought I was going to die, but I was suspended, so I wasn't going nowhere. Across ground, which was be balance beam, walking the ladder. They actually roped me up to a powered wheelchair that had been powered down and had a therapist sit on it, have me pull it through the facility like I was a workhorse, just pulling this thing around the building. So I learned those are 3 key things I had to keep working on: was continue to walk, stairs are my friends, and to get outside my comfort zone, not just flat concrete, get on different types of surfaces to walk and learn how to keep my balance. Most of my therapy at that point was sporadic. I'd have like maybe a session a week because we spaced them out because of insurance. And I asked the therapist, I said, well, do you want me to sit inside and do my therapy lessons, or do you want me to go outside and work in the yard? He goes, go work in the yard. You do more on your own than we can do for you here. So go work in the yard, go push mow your yard. Well, my neighbors all got ticked at me because it's 90 degrees out and I'm pushing mowing my yard. And they're all mad because they want to go over and cut my grass. I said, no, you don't understand. My therapist wants me to cut the grass. Leave me alone. I'm fine. And they keep coming with their power mowers. I said, I got this. I'll just push my yard. So I had to argue with neighbors. So again, it was up to me to figure out how to do this stuff, not for everybody else to do it for me. And that was just stuck in my head from day one. I've been heavily involved with it's a group called CPRG, which I don't remember the name. It's with the college here in Indianapolis called University of Indianapolis. It's with their therapy school. It was developed by a doctor over 20 some years ago. Used to have actors come in and portray having a stroke or loss of something, use of something. And it's not the same as when a therapist is trying to work with you when you try to act like you had it versus feeling how you actually are because you do have it. So the doctor decided to see about live patients coming in and working with the students. Well, as the students go through their 2 to 4 year college, they have over 1,000 touches on patients in classroom with the professors. You know, they'll be like, most times I show up in a class, I'll get 3 students for 30 minutes. They'll switch out class. I'll get 3 more for 30 minutes and maybe another set for 30 minutes. Sometimes as much as 4 students. But for them to be able to work with me and feel different things, my legs, my arms, and to actually work on vitals on me and how to take blood pressures on your down around your ankles like that. It's been very beneficial to me, even though they don't realize how much it is, because they have not been taken into the corporate world yet and worked with the hospitals and the insurance. And so their minds are still pretty open at this point. They're not closed down as much. So they have a lot of good ideas that never get out of the classroom. And it's been, I mean, I also work with IUPUI, which is IU Purdue down in Indy. They do a wellness clinic in the spring. It's 4 weeks long. It's usually almost 2 hours every Thursday. We work with OT and PT at the same time. And they have come up with some great ideas and some work with me. Most times I get a group of usually 4 to 5 students for the whole time. And they are graded on they're evaluated on what they have learned from me and what they've, the interventions they've given me and what the end progress where the end work was. And so far, every year for 5 years, these students have got an A in their class. The professor knows me well, and she knows I will challenge them. I will not let them give up on anything. And that's the same with these professors at University of Annapolis. They know I will tell them things going on with me that they're not going to see. I mean, I may be standing there working on balance, and my left toes are curled under, but they can't see that in my shoe. I will tell them what's going on so they actually can feel down my shoe and see what's going on to better help them become better therapists once they are out of school. I said professors down there, they ask me in different classes, they want me in different groups. They know I wear the superhero costumes. Sometimes they allow me to wear them in class just for the fun of it, just to break the ice with the students. I just got done with the class 2 weeks ago. It was had 3 sessions with 2 students each, and I had an intervention session in the afternoon with each of those sets of students. The gentleman that was taking his doctorate for physical therapy was one running the Zoom class. I was his first contact with the CPRG group, and I actually had my Deadpool outfit on that day because they were working on interviews, their interview skills. So I walk in this room to sit down, and I'm in total Deadpool. I'm in case they don't know who I am. They have no clue who I am. But he goes, it's funny, it's full circle. You're my first contact with CPRG, and you're my last contact with CPRG before I graduate. So just funny that kid remembered it 3 years ago. And a lot of students argue within their dorms that they have the superhero in their class or not. So I'm sort of half known around the class, and it's been sort of fun. But it's the beneficial part to me is to get out there in the community and work with this stuff and teach these other students to be better therapists. When they get out there, they can help somebody else. And some of the stuff I explain to them, or sometimes they experience with me, they might remember that as they get out in the field and work with somebody going, I remember some guy did this, but how did we get to that point? And they may make a link with that stuff and make them better students and better therapists. The biggest thing one of the things that did turn my life around the most is I looked at different stroke groups when I come out. My sister kept telling me, you need to go to a support group. You need to go to a support group. I didn't feel like I needed to go to a support group because I thought most support groups are going to be all the poor me stuff. And I looked online on Facebook and found a few, and that's what they were. They were all poor me. So I got away from all. And I was getting ready to leave, looking on anything on Facebook, and all of a sudden somebody clicked this little invite to me. I'm going, okay. So I checked out this other little group over here, and I'm like, this looks like the group is perfect for me. And that person's on the bottom of the screen right now named Michelle Jensen. And she gave me a lot of focus on what I could work on and gave me a lot more that I could handle. And at the same time, I think we've inspired each other to the whole thing. But that group is what has helped me for the biggest part, turn things around, because I didn't know what this journey was going to be like. And when I was actually had my stroke, there was nobody in the stroke wing with me besides one other guy, and his stroke was to his left side of his brain, so this guy's right side. So our deficits were not the same, and I had nobody in the facility to look up to get answers from. So I try to take all this stuff I learned now and give it back to the people that go through stroke or anything else, and give them somebody to talk to, which that's why I needed a time with somebody to talk to show me I can do this stuff. Besides a therapist, I wanted to know that I could do this stuff. And the stroke squad, the Michelle design, has been perfect fit for me. It's been wonderful. I can't say enough about Michelle and a few other people that are in there that harass the crap out of me. That's okay. It's mutual. It's been a journey, and I had no idea this was going to be my journey. I just wanted to get better for myself, and as I come through stuff that I learned in therapy, I come home and try to replicate the same stuff. Like everybody's familiar with using the sanding box, stuff like that. Well, I just use my air hockey table, turn the air hockey off, and just use my hand on the paddle and move it back and forth and start doing the same motions as they're doing there. I know they have I think there's a box you put your hand in to get warm sand or something like that to get your hand to warm up. Well, I looked at one of those wax machines everybody used for the hands to get their hands softer and stuff like that. Well, the wax was a little too warm for my hand, but I was just trying to think of ideas. What can I do at home instead of going through all the therapy stuff at therapy and do nothing for the other 6 days a week? Stairs have been my friend for this since almost day one. I would always go outside. Sometimes I'd go out walking at midnight, use the street lights only, walking in the streets that I know, but knowing to get the feedback from my feet to my brain that how I'm walking, not looking at my feet, but looking ahead of me. And then I can't see them because it's dark anyway. So I just, walking through grass, walking through gravel, stuff. Anything that was not normal was the direction I went. So I was way outside my comfort zone. And as far as I can tell, that's where you can get the biggest gains and where you need to be.
John, in your bio, you talk about how your OT and your PT got you off to a good start. Not so much about how they did that, but that would be great. But How did that influence you and affect you and get you off to a good start?
Well, they showed me that I can do something. I can get through this. Um, they would challenge me, and of course, every day I'd have 4 or 5 sessions a day. As long as they made me sweat at least one of those hours, they did their job, and that was their key point. Was they got me to sweat. They were doing things outside the box with me. Uh, they had me laying face down off a mat, one of those mats, staring at the ground, trying to lift up a as a broomstick handle, and she was easing on my shoulder at the same time. And my neurologist walked by one day. All I could see was her feet. She goes, "How's it going today?" I said, "I don't know. You out. You tell me, because I'm the one staring at the floor trying to figure this stuff out." And my therapist is standing on my back trying to keep me level. I'm just staring at the floor trying to pull this bar up, and I couldn't do it. But she's just stemming the crap out of my shoulder to get it to work. And they would just, I was forcing them to go outside their box also to figure things out with me, because the normal stuff was not working. It was too easy for me. They put me on the Bosu ball between the parallel bars and said 20 squats, no touching. That was like week 2 of therapy. I'm going, okay. I said, can I touch with my pinky? Yes, but you can't hold on. You can touch, but no holding on. So I would sit there and do squats. It was not pretty, but I would do squats right away. And then she would just challenge me even more. They'd give me homework to do. I didn't like that. I did not like being in a wheelchair every day. So when I'm any place, people always say, "You want to sit down?" No, I'm fine standing. I like being on these 2 legs. I earned my right to get back to these. I want to stay on them. Standing up does not wear me out at all. Um, After I did the research study, I got into saying, can I actually go back to? I used to be a jogger, so I would do 5Ks and half marathons around the state. Um, After I did that study in 2013, I decided to see if I could complete the mini marathon here locally in Indianapolis. It was 13.1 miles. I thought, well, I can try it. I got my stamina up on everything that I could handle it. And I like thinking for 13 miles was lift my knee, extend my foot, push off my toes. For 3.5 hours, that's all I thought about to my brain was doing that. I didn't want to stub my toe and go face down on the track somewhere. It took me 3 hours and I think 42 minutes to complete the first year. And everybody just freaked out that I was able to complete that. I've done it 4 more times since then. I'm now like 320, 325 for my 13 miles. I've been training here locally to try to complete a full marathon in November if I can get that down pat.
Wow. Did you find that by challenging your physical and occupational therapists that they responded and you got more out of them than if you had just been a typical or normal client? The fact that
Yes,
you were meeting them more than halfway, did you feel like that enhanced your relationship with them?
yes. To push them even harder, my occupational therapist is just coming off maternity leave, and she was actually more of a spinal cord therapist. But the only thing that was open was the stroke squad, or the stroke group when she came back. So she took on my case day one, and she challenged me big time, pushed me really hard.
Yeah, that's what I found, and I kind of preach establishing that kind of relationship with your therapist and doing the homework and coming back and impressing them, because you end up with in my experience, a completely different relationship than if you show up and say, "I'm here, make me better." Um,
Right? They're not just herding sheep through there. They're actually working with you to make you better. And they knew it. They knew I was ready to go home when I went home. They pushed me hard enough to get me out the door. And I've been friends with them ever since. And I talk to them whenever I go back in the facility. I stop and talk to them just to make sure they know that what they did back then and how it's affecting me now and how I'm doing much better now. So that their work they did paid off.
That's really important because I've kind of done the same thing with my therapist, and they always tell you that they appreciate that because they work with a lot of people, and one of them actually said, we see them walk out the door, and that's it. So they actually they like that, and so I think it's a good thing. I think that the work that you're doing with the students is very important too. Getting them some real world experience. I wish we could keep them with all those open minds and ideas when they enter the whole corporate and insurance world, but uh, at least you get to experience that. And I'm sure that's very gratifying for you as well to be doing it. And also, I know a little something that other people don't know. You told me that, like on the Zoom calls and stuff, or when you're just hanging around, that they're all talking and you're listening, trying to pick up stuff.
Yeah, they'll have a comment. That's why when they went to Zoom for this past year, it sort of ruined all that. But they'd be talking to the side. The professor would come by and give them some instructions, and they're talking to the side, and it may just be a small little tidbit they say that clicks with me. It fits into a bigger part of the puzzle, but they don't realize that because they don't know what the big puzzle is yet. They're still students, and I can actually give them some feedback on that too, or what they're talking about. I can tell them exactly what they're thinking is the exact area they need to go to,
For
and they
those for those of you who don't know, who may be watching this on YouTube, you know, it's kind of we all feel it's kind of up to us as stroke survivors to take responsibility for our own recovery. And the first one of the first components of that is learning everything that you can about your stroke, what kind of stroke you had, and getting, as John referred to, that big picture. If you can't look at yourself in terms of the big picture, it's a lot harder to figure out what to focus on. So, John, talk a little bit about how the superhero thing evolved, how it got started, and some of the fun that you've had with it.
Hey, Ralph, if I may, before you go there, John, I want to respond to one thing you said
sure.
that fits in. About 3 weeks ago, we did a presentation on being your own best health advocate. And you said, which I think is very important, we have to share with our therapist what our expectations are. What do you want to get out of this? Not what she wants to get. What do you want to get? Because you own this. You have to accept responsibility and accountability for our recovery. I'm working with a lady now who, you know, she wants to get out of the wheelchair. And I said, well, did you tell the therapist that? And she said, no. I said, well, if you don't share that with her, how does she know what your goal is? And we as stroke survivors have a right to have our own expectations, but we need to share them. And that's part of being your own best health advocate.
I
They
agree.
have a
Right, speak up. The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yep, you're right. You're right on that, Dennis. I had a therapist that was just going through the motions with me because my occupational therapist was off for a week or so, and then when she came back, she had already made a phone call to IU Robotics to get me over to the robotics division to work on my left shoulder, my left elbow, my wrist. But I didn't know she'd made that phone call, so she'd already realized that I wasn't getting the gains in regular physical therapy. I needed something different, and she made the decision to push me over there, which was one of the best decisions I thought with my left arm and working with my core. My shoulder was still locked up and my wrists were still locked up, and the robot helped break that free, along with doing some extra physical therapy to get my core to break free. And I also went to a massage therapist that was using a lot of essential oils on my shoulder and my arm. And I could actually look down through the hole in the table and watch her on her tiptoes pressing into my shoulder and my arm to get this stuff to break free. She said, you need to drink a lot of water because I really pushed that shoulder hard. And she actually, between her massages and the oils and everything else, got my shoulder to break free and my arm to break free. We could feel within about 4 weeks doing it once a week. We felt the changes happen that quick.
I'm also experimenting. I've got a troublesome affected hip, and I've been going to a neuro-trained massage therapist, and I swear he about breaks me in half every week. I've never been Rolfed, but it's my idea of what Rolfing is about. Um, and well, last week apparently my ribs are rounded, and last week I was laying there and he was pushing on me hard, and a rib popped back in place. And but I found it helpful. I would say my hip acts up only about half as much as it did. I think I've had 4 sessions now, and so I wouldn't discount massage therapy. However, you might want to make sure that the person that you're going to knows something about stroke or neuro um, or your condition rather than just being a more normal massage therapist.
Correct.
So
I,
how did
I
you?
went, I went, yeah, back to I did the advanced therapy for the 30 days, and they had me walking around the building so many times every day just to time me and to push me a little harder. One time, I know there's a piece of apparatus they use to transfer people out of wheelchairs and stuff on wheels. Well, they would hook me up to that with a harness, and the therapist would sit on a rolling chair behind it, holding onto it and digging his heels in on the floor. So you hear it squeaking going through the hallways, but they were just putting a lot of resistance on me to pull. And I'd been walking so many times around everybody's cubicles to the offices and stuff. I thought, I feel like Flash. I just keep going faster every time I go by everybody's stuff. It's faster and faster. And the therapist that was doing one of the studies says, I have the Flash costume from the Big Bang Theory. And I said, okay. I said, can I borrow it for the last session of my 30-day sessions, just for the fun of it? So he said, sure. So I was on the treadmill inside their little therapy office with the glass windows and all these people doing regular therapy outside the windows, trying to figure out who the guy in the red suit is, and they're walking the treadmill. I mean, I have the harness on and everything else, and I've got the mask on, and I'm just walking the treadmill, burning up because it's hot. But then they took me out through the hallways and stuff, and a couple of therapists called me to the side, and most of the therapists in that room knew me. And this was a new therapy thing that they were trying. So they were all looking for feedback from me on how this stuff made me feel. And then with the costume on, it just said, here's how it made me feel right here. And at the same time, one of the therapists pulled me to the side and introduced me to Larry White, who's in the stroke squad. He was a friend. He lives about an hour and a half away from me, but he and I have been friends ever since that day. And he's wanted to do everything I do. Now I know he does more of a recumbent bike now than he does with walking, but he found his happy spot to do what he needed to do. And he and I have been friends ever since that day. That therapist introduced us. She said he needs some inspiration. I needed you to talk to him a little bit. And from that day, we've been friends ever since. And he's been through the same therapy sessions I have. He also does the stuff at IUPUI every year, the wellness clinic. I've got him involved in that. And he loves it every bit. But I started wearing the Flash costume. And after I got done with that session, I went to clean it and I brought it back to the therapist. I said, how much are you wanting for this outfit? He goes, I will give you this outfit. He said, because I'm not going to wear it again, if you use it to inspire others. So that kicked off my superhero costumes. I used the Flash for the Bop to the Top here in Indianapolis, which is a 36 floor stair climb, 780 steps. I do that. I do the triple climb. I climb it 3 times. Usually one trip, I'll put a 40-pound weight vest on for the first trip. And then the last 2 trips, I'll do it just with a shirt that goes to one of the colleges around here. I picked up Captain America I use for the mini marathon, and I use it also for the drumstick dash on Thanksgiving morning because those are 2 American holidays. I picked up Iron Man to try to do with the stair climb also. I've used Iron Man also for any of the winter events because I can wear the helmet and stay warm. I've done Green Lantern for the Shamrock for St. Patrick's Day because I didn't want to be Hulk. I wasn't Hulk. I'm not Hulk. I'm just not that big. But the only thing I come up with was Green Lantern, so I used Green Lantern for that one. I picked up Deadpool I used, which I ordered a special Deadpool outfit the first year for Race for the Cure. The Susan B. Komen thing. It's actually a pink Deadpool. And the following year, Ryan Reynolds come out with the FU Cancer pink Deadpool suit, pink and black. I'm going, why did you do that? You stole my idea. But I already had that on it. I wear the pink one, the pink and black for that event. And we've actually walked to the start line, and my daughter's just apologizing to everybody the whole time. I'm sorry. And then the minute they tell everybody to go, well, everybody's stopping and wanting selfies. And my daughter's going, all I did was tell everybody to go, and the paparazzi comes out. I said, this is what happens when you wear stuff like this everywhere. I mean, I've got the swords on my back. I've got the play guns on my side and make sure that local cops don't try to shoot me and take me down. But they're just plastic green and blue guns like that. But I do this to give back to the therapist, that everybody knows it's a therapist that gave me my life back. And this also brings another thing about men's health and anybody's health about stroke. So I use this to promote stroke awareness and men's health and to give back to the therapist. So that's where the superhero costumes have started come in, because that's the way the therapist made me feel after this, everything they've worked on is made me feel like I'm invincible again. I know I'm not, but I take control of my life and what's going on with it. And the biggest advocate for myself is myself. Our biggest advocate for my recovery is myself. So that's where I push everything. And I won't give any advice to anybody else that needs advice out there, I'll do special videos for you. I'll help in any way, shape, or form you can. I'll share every bit of knowledge that I take in. If it's something you're working on or something you may talk to me about, I may have a session with students like that, and I'll ask the students. And sometimes they give me some feedback that I can get back to somebody else. It's all free. The knowledge is all free. But it's been my journey to take this on, I guess, as in my new journey to try to promote against stroke awareness and try to make people believe that they can do better. Because all I ever knew about stroke was you didn't last for a couple of years after the stroke. Well, here I am 7.5 years after stroke, and I'm just fine. I'm actually healthier now than I was prior to the stroke.
You touched on something about dragging the wheelchair around. I one time I had this crazy thought. I think probably all of us got attached to that giant rubber band around your waist where you like the therapist holds on and like you walk until you can't walk because the rubber band's pulling you backwards. I'm a video guy, as some of you know, and one time I shot for a fitness club and they had a CrossFit division, and I went out, I shot in the regular club, and then I went out to the CrossFit division and shot. And I don't know, one time I was thinking about the rubber band and everything. I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool to like do a CrossFit for stroke survivors? And I'm not talking about like the 800-pound tires or stuff that, I mean, they were doing 800-pound, 6-foot tires and stuff out there. Some kind of, similar thing that would challenge challenges the stroke survivors and also be good for recovery. So I wondered what you and Michelle might think about that idea. Of course, it's another one of my ideas that like, where can you build it? You need 1,000 of them around the country, like CrossFit training places are now already. Or I also thought, wonder if you could get like a CrossFit place to let you bring stroke survivors out there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or sometime when nothing's going on. So that's my nutty idea for the day.
That's not a bad idea.
No, it's not.
I mean, I know RHI has now got their, you can sign up to do treadmill work with them. I think it's $25 a session, but they also have the bag that can put weight in behind you. You drag a bag across the floor. It's designed to be dragged. So you've got an actual like 50, 60 pounds you're trying to drag, which I thought about doing here also, trying to make some sort of sled thing to work out and just run it off a carpet to take some of the resistance away to make it a little bit easier. But drag, it gets you pushing off your toes and trying to extend your leg out, get that heel so you get that roll through your foot to your toes again. I've realized that from pushing carts at work. The one thing I didn't bring in here was I work for Menards. First thing in the morning, I do morning stock every morning. There are some things I couldn't do when I first took on this job that I can do now. There's still some things that I've taken on more that I can't do yet. I use my arm as much as I can. I use my legs as much as I can. I mean, I usually work till 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and I'm usually leave there close to 20,000 steps by the time I leave work in the morning. And sometimes I've moved 50, 60 pound bags around. I've pushed carts away several hundred pounds. And I also, when I'm doing that, I'm trying to do workouts at the same time. So I'm focusing on my arm and focusing on my knee. I'm working on my foot, my ankle, everything just at the same time while I'm working. So it's a paid therapy for me. And it's 4 days a week.
Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you will also, a common thread amongst most of us here is that therapy is all around you. And like John was saying, his therapist said, go work in the yard, push the push mower. I did that. I just did it on my own. Nobody told me to. I just found that holding on to things, like the steering wheel, when I started driving again, it was real good. And I started driving left-handed affected arm only because I was worried about it going, into a cement truck or something. But I overcame that. So most of us here believe that therapy is all around you, and that you can. Part of a home program can simply be doing the things that you normally do or the things that you need to do, like washing dishes or cooking or whatever, and using that affected hand as much as you can. People will say, "Oh, well, it doesn't do much." Well, it doesn't do much maybe because you're not trying to do much with it. And yeah, I mean, you might want to switch to the plastic plates for the first couple of months and not the fine china, but try washing dishes and try doing things with it. When I tell this to people that I coach, I often hear back, well, I got somebody right now in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She started doing this stuff, and she said, "Oh, we did spring cleaning today." And then, another thing, "Oh, I cooked a meal all by myself. My son didn't have to help me," and those kinds of things. I start hearing that back, and it's, so it was true for me. And then when I hear it's true for other people, we start to believe that it's good advice. Those of us who are pay it forward people, as I used to call them until yesterday, those of us who are stroke veterans, um, try and pass on good information so we pay attention to what people are saying, so that when we hear a whole collective thing. Yesterday in Michelle's group, we were talking about people were saying, my arm hurt or twinges or whatever. And we've seen that so much that's typically a sign of your brain connecting back with your arm. John's shaking his head now because I was talking about this yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, I've noticed that. I completely agree." So we see enough posts where that we get some confidence in the fact that we can say typically, and most of us will do this, is say typically or usually that's a good sign. It means that that your arm's connected to your brain, because if you haven't been feeling tingling or pain or whatever, it's not real connected. And we'll typically advise people to, while that's happening, to try working it. Maybe your brain's trying to tell you something. Body awareness is one of the keys to good recovery. I mean, number one's got to be attitude, because if you don't wake up, with a glass is half full, I'm gonna kick ass today attitude, most every day, and you cannot do it every day. You can't.
No, you're
But
right.
that's the most important thing. And another thing is, and part of that's kind of taking responsibility for your recovery, but paying attention to your body and good body awareness are really key, because you want to know what you want feedback from yourself.
Agreed. And you have to know that you can try everything yourself, and there may be times you can't quite get it, and it's okay to ask for help to get the task accomplished. There's no shame in that whatsoever, to ask for a little bit of help. But it doesn't mean next time that task comes up, you can't try it yourself again to see if you have any gain since then.
Well, and I was like you, John. I was a complete maniac in the beginning, and my attitude was if I couldn't do it, I wasn't going to do it halfway, because that was cheating. And I actually used that word, cheating. And I've come to learn that that's wrong. Um, it was too much of a gung ho attitude, and being a guy, guys are worse about this than women are. Being gung ho and light switch on, light switch off, no gray. Um,
And plenty gray.
there's plenty of gray. So I've learned since then that what you do is you try and break it down. You try and simplify it. Um, they were asking me to do something at physical therapy recently where I started on the ground. I put my affected leg up on the first step, and then they wanted me to take my unaffected leg and go through the entire motion up to the second step, but not put it down, and then bring it hover for a few seconds. Now you're hovering with that leg out in front of you on your affected leg, and then bring it all the way back down. Well, I tried it and I couldn't do it, and I get frustrated real easy. I'll admit that. And so I said to the therapist, I don't know, I went way out on a limb. I said, "Hang on, let me try something here." And so what I did was I noticed that when I went up with my non-affected foot to the second step, that I could do it pretty well if I just touched the step, just light touch the step with my toe. So I did 10 of those to kind of pattern myself. And then I looked at him again and said, "Okay, here goes." And I went to do it. I couldn't do it at all before. And after I did 10 of them to pattern myself, I managed to do 8 out of 10 with the hovering. And so you can sometimes learn part of a task on your way to learning the whole thing. Breaking it down
Yes.
or
Break it down. You're right.
or making it easy. The one finger, John, I can't believe they had you doing Bosu ball squats at 2 weeks. You know when I got my Bosu ball and started doing squats? I think it was about 10 and a half years out. That's all.
Me too. Me too.
I've got my own here in the basement. I
I
bought
got
my
my
own to
own
keep
now
here.
too. I saw a woman just, you know, as a stroke survivor, it's just amazing to watch other people, and they don't realize the gift that they have of being able to move without thinking about it, not having had a stroke, you know. So I'm at the gym and I'm doing some kind of bridges or clamshells or some kind of crap over and over again. And I watch this woman, she just walks up and steps right on the Bosu ball, and I went, wow. So I went
Yeah.
over and tried it. No way it worked. But now I can do squats without holding on and pull a TheraBand while I'm doing it, while looking out at infinity.
Focus on one point, keep your
Yeah,
balance. Yeah.
focus on one point. Yeah. So see, look what you hear in here, folks. Okay, so John and I have had similar journeys. I said in my introduction that he's an adapter. He said, you know, when I got home, I just decided to use a whatever. You know, I had somebody I took to physical therapy, and they had him on parallel bars with a $150 maple therapy block. Well, I got a piece of scrap 4x4, and I put some sandbags on a regular walker, and I had parallel bars you couldn't tip over.
Right.
Since then, I built a set. So one of the keys to all this stuff is, you know, don't run into dead ends. When, you know, so many people say, oh, well, I tried it and I couldn't do it. Well, did you try and do it halfway? Did you try and do the best that you could, even though it looked awful? Um, Typically not. So what's happened here is John and I basically have had similar experiences. We adapted and invented some of the same things we've discovered through talking together. And so, one of the points of this is to pass on that kind of information because, you know, a lot of us here, we think it's crazy that 800,000 people a year have a stroke and there's no manual. Dennis left, but Dennis goes, they didn't give me a manual. Well, no, there is no manual.
Manual.
And so we're all sent out to reinvent the wheel for ourselves, which is stupid. Stupid. I mean, it's just crazy. So the first thing that we're trying to do is get that kind of information to stroke survivors. Another goal of mine and John and Michelle and some other folks are
Yes.
kind of trying to kind of form a pack of veterans or pay it forward people so we can advance this idea because what we think is why aren't the therapists listening to us? We've been, you know, John will tell you he's figured out things that no one ever told him in physical therapy. In another group that I run, we did a program the other night on neuroplasticity and how to maximize it. No physical therapist has ever said the word neuroplasticity to me. Never, ever. Have they said it to you, John or
No, not
Michelle?
at all. No,
No.
none.
So, I mean, it's a concept that they didn't believe in 30 years ago. They thought the brain was set once you're an adult, no more neurons. And now they know that's not true. And now they
Right.
know that neuroplasticity exists throughout your life, no matter how old you are and no matter how far out you are on your stroke. I've made a couple of videos on things that I've learned to do way, way out to kind of demonstrate this concept. One was learning to throw a tennis ball with my affected arm. Being a video guy, I like to do things that are real visual. So I set that all up with a course and stakes, and I staked out my progress and all that stuff. Because I think if you can show somebody something visually, they really get it. Um,
Yes, I agree. The visual part.
but I'm a visual learner, you know. I always said, you know, with my physical therapist and occupational therapist, I would tell them, show me once, let me do it for you, and then I got it.
Yep.
Um, so,
A lot of times they put the mirror in front of me so I could see my reactions because what I think I'm doing is not exactly what I am doing, but for me to see what I'm doing makes a
right.
big difference.
Yeah, I used the mirror a lot. I did like symmetry stuff. I, you know, put my arms over in different ways and, you know, try to make sure I'm level. And, you know, so you think, you know, you do this without, well, first you do it by looking down that affected arm. But, you know, then you want to get it to like walking in the dark to where you're not looking at your feet. You know, you want to be able to put that arm out flat without looking at it in the dark or whatever. It's a form of proprioception. Just like when you're standing at the walker doing that step up or the step over with that $150 maple therapy block or the scrap piece of 4x4. After you get good at it and you know where your foot is, I try and teach people, okay, now close your eyes and do it, because you really want to be able to know where that foot's going when you're walking. And that's why I'm sure, John, that's what you're doing when you go out and walk at night and go four-wheeling. That's what my therapist, one day when I was still in the rehab hospital, the therapist said, we're going to go outside and go four-wheeling. And they had a little patio set up. It was kind of cool. They had like stepping stones and gravel, grass, concrete walkway. So we walked in the thick grass and they made sure they didn't cut it.
Right.
Because that's a completely different challenge. If you're not picking up that affected foot, you definitely know it in the grass. I used the grass because I didn't have anybody to walk me, and I was still needed a gait belt. And all of a sudden, I had a friend come for a week and walk me on the gait belt the first week I got out of the hospital. The second week, I said, oh, I'm not going back to sitting in that damn wheelchair all day. I'm going to walk somehow. So I walked out on the grass because I figured if I fell in the grass, it would be a lot better than falling on my concrete driveway where I'd been walking. And after a week or so of that, I had the confidence to go back up to the concrete driveway, which was a lot better for drop foot, which I definitely had at that time. So
Yeah, I've been, any of the courses I've ever done, both at RHI and at the colleges, have always been multi-services. I mean, RHI's has a ramp system set up inside their building for you to work with a wheelchair, to get a wheelchair at the top of a ramp. They also have their steps set up, but the steps are set up for like the curb of next to the street, a sidewalk curb, and there's like 4 or 5 different steps, but they're set up for the world outside the building for you to work on.
right, and I had my stroke in the North Carolina mountains, so everything was up and down. So I got pretty good at up and down. They weren't easy. Down's a lot harder. Up's real easy because you know when you're going up that if nothing else, that you're going to fall forward, and you can always go to all fours and crawl. When you're walking downhill, you know that that's a long way to fall, and you're going to tumble. Yeah,
And never end.
and the fear. Now, hey Michelle, you want to have want another topic that we could talk about for a long time, and that would be the impact of fear and how to overcome it in stroke recovery, because I
For
think it plays a
sure.
huge factor.
I've known a lot of people won't go walking because they're afraid they fall, they can't get up.
Right.
They don't have the confidence, but to build confidence, you have to do it.
Right. It's catch-22. You have to do it to get over it, and you can't do it because of the fear.
It's to get outside your comfort zone. That's where you have your biggest gains. You have to get out there or nothing's going to change.
It's the only place to grow.
Yeah, if you do the same thing every day, it's not going to change anything. If you have to get outside your comfort zone to make the biggest changes.
Okay, well, since you said that, that reminded me, one of the things in that presentation on neuroplasticity is the reason most people plateau is that the brain gets used to whatever it's doing. The brain needs to be challenged in order to learn. In that presentation, we talked about performing everything in an enriched environment. So the brain, challenging the brain. So typically what happens is you go to physical therapy, and in the beginning, they're giving you all kinds of new stuff, and the curve goes up like this for the first 5 or 6 or 7 weeks, and then it starts flattening out and flattening out. And then right about here, they start going, oh, you're not making any progress. The insurance company might not want to pay for you anymore. And the problem is that they're having you do the same thing. They're not challenging your brain. When you reach a plateau, it's time to mix up your routine. If you do something different. This is one of the ways we discovered that was through these groups. What happens is people get released from insurance and they want to get better, so they go and do stuff at home. Typically, what do? These are motivated people who don't necessarily know what to do, so they ask their physical therapist for homework, like right before they leave. Okay, what can I do now? I can't come and see you anymore. Well, you can't go and do that for 6 months. You can do that for 6 weeks, but then you need new stuff
and
all
stuff.
the time. New stuff, because you got to challenge that brain. Um,
That's where if I'm out doing a lot of my walking, I monitor my times, my distances, and stuff like that. If I see it's starting and nothing's changing, I have my own 40-pound weight vest. I'll put it on and start walking, and
yeah,
start going up to 4 to 6 miles at a time, or I'll go do 25 sets on the stairs and try not to touch the handrail, just to push my legs a little more and get different muscle groups activated, because the muscle groups I was using are at their maximum right now. I need to get the rest of the groups involved
right.
since the body's so complex.
You can go back to all that stuff that you drop. It's really a matter of mixing it up to keep the brain challenged and stimulated.
Yes.
So, um,
I mean,
It's,
you talked about making stuff at home. Everybody they have you walk a balance beam. Okay, you start with just put a piece of tape on the floor and just start walking that heel to toe, and do it next to a wall if you need to, and do forwards and backwards, and you can still touch the wall for your balance, or have a chair next to you for your balance. You can go to most clothing or cloth stores, and you can pick up foam pads. Well, they always have you stand on a foam pad, mark a line down the middle of that pad, and put that in your where you just put the tape on the floor, put that on your line. So then you have to step from the floor to the pad, then back off the pad to the floor. And if you get comfortable with that, then just take a 2x4, set it on the floor, walk on the 2x4. Most balance beams are 3.5 inches wide, 3 inches wide. The 2x4 is 3.5. So you're a little half-inch more than that. So you just practice working on the 2x4. And again, you can do that just sitting in the hallway or whatever, where you got a wall next to you just for balance. But you can still work that. Hey, I'm gonna do this today without touching. And if you fall off, you fall off 1 inch to the ground, so you're not really high up in the air like on a balance beam where you're gonna hit the ground somewhere. You can step off and catch yourself. But the idea is you want to get past that whole 8 foot long balance or 8 foot long 2x4 without touching anything or falling off, and learn how to place your feet and get your ankles right and adjust how everything's gonna set. So it's
I
just
actually have a video of that on my YouTube channel. It's called Stroke Summer Camp. We did this kind of like summer camp goofy thing. Well, I mean, it's an idea. There are stroke summer camps. It's like kind of like my CrossFit idea. I'd love to run a summer camp and have people come and and do stuff. Well, we did one. I have a friend who's an occupational therapist who's pretty much a physical therapist too. His wife is director of physical therapy at a hospital, so they're all he's around a lot of it. And he had a friend down from Canada that we were challenging. I was videoing it and helping with the challenging, and we set up a bunch of 2x4s, and we get Brent to walk them. Well, he can't walk them at all in the beginning because why? Fear. He's afraid. He's afraid he's going to fall. So John walks with him, and he walks one by himself with John like near him, my friend the OT. And then he asks John if he can put one finger on his shoulder. And he does 3 laps with his finger on his shoulder, and then he's able to do it without the finger on the shoulder because he's spent enough time in that zone. I'm a big believer in this fear thing, that you have to spend enough time in doing the task properly and safely in that zone to convince your brain that that it's all right to do it and not to have that fear. And I'm 13 years out, and I still find in certain situations my brain conjures up some fear of something that I've been able to do for 10 years. It's insane how long it takes to get rid of the fear. So I had a guy I was walking on a gait belt, and I was going there twice a week. He could only walk for about 20 minutes or half an hour before he got fatigued. So, I mean, you can't go there and do 3 hours with him. So doing like half an hour twice a week. Well, I was seeing a couple other people, and I couldn't get over there more. So I came up with this idea when I started thinking about this whole zone and fear thing. I took a regular Rollator walker, and I put my 2 sandbags on it, and it's got 50 pounds of weight on it. You can't turn that sucker over. And I was surprised on smooth surfaces like the road, it pushes almost as if there's no sandbags on it. And of course, I tried steering it only with my strong arm because I know that somebody's going to say, I can't do that because I only have one arm. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. But we get that a
No.
lot. You know, I can't do that because I only have one, my arm doesn't work. Well, have you ever tried like walking with a rollator, steering it with your good arm? Because it's really not that hard. People seem to get defeated a lot. So I ended up, I set this whole thing up and I took it over there and, you know, because what I wanted him to do was walk up and down the street so he could spend half an hour every day, you know, in that lack of fear zone, walking on his own. We were trying to get him off of the 4-point cane to nothing. And I
Right.
was walking him just with a gait belt. So, you know, just light touching the rollator. They're a lot like shopping carts, which make excellent walkers.
Yeah.
They do. I actually take people to the store to walk with shopping carts while I shop. Stroke survivors.
Do you make them pay though?
No, no, the ride's free, the gas is free, the nagging's free, all the, you know, okay, you know, walk between this. I've, you know, taken people into Home Depot and said, well, look, let's go in the back because there's less people than in front of the cash register. And I'll send them like walking the entire length of the building until I come back for them. It's just, it's real good for patterning.
Yeah.
I got on a shopping cart one time. I tried to bash my shins on it, and you can't do it. As long as you got your arms, as long as you don't change your arms, you can't hit your shins on one.
Yeah. See, I'll have a whole cart full of plank boards, and they'll put it up on top of a blue cart, and it's probably 600-700 pounds. Well, I have to, once we take certain things out, I have to push it down to another aisle. Well, a lot of times I'd be just pushing with one side of my shoulder and that. Now I get to the point where I put my hand up there and push off forward and push this thing forward and make sure my arm is engaged in shoving that whole thing forward. And if I get off a little bit, it's going to go left or right. So I have to make sure I keep my everything going in the right direction. And I have to push harder with my left arm to get it out there, and I push it out there. But originally I couldn't move that cart once we put that stuff up there. But now I can move that cart and pushing off my legs. I mean, sometimes if I just using off my shoulder, I'm doing the cross stepping as I'm doing it. I'm not just pulling my foot up to the other one and extend my right foot back out again. My left foot's crossing my right and then pushing my right's pushing down. Then the left foot's pushing down off the side of my foot.
Well, and you're making my point here, which was, you know, get out the plastic dishes and try washing them. You know, when you can't do something, you know, I tell the people I work, in case you don't know, like Mandy, or I've worked with 13 local stroke survivors where I actually go do physical therapy with them. And what I tell my guys and gals is, you know, if you can't do something right, you got a lot of them in your future.
That's true.
It's the only way. You didn't learn how to push that cart by being on Facebook groups. You learned it by every morning, you know, giving it another shot.
That's where Menards, the people at the store, corporate may not like it, but they know sometimes I take my phone and I'll shoot a quick video just to show people things that you can do and where I'm at from where I was a year ago. And I just take a quick 2-3 minute video and put my phone back away, and they're okay with that because I don't really share it corporate wise. I share it in the groups here.
Right.
And
corporate might not like that, but you know, I think it's wonderful that they're. I'm not saying they're bending the rules or anything, but you know, they're giving you an opportunity. I think
They're allowing it.
I think
Yeah.
all of them for that.
yeah, it's a couple of the bosses. I say, you know, if you see my phone sitting on an edge or something like that videoing me, I'm just trying to show people that things you can accomplish things and what I go through on a daily basis, what I consider my therapy, and it is outside the box therapy for what I consider. You know, that's not doing stuff on a table. You're not sitting at a table. You're not standing somewhere. I mean, I'll throw a
Right.
pack of 2x2s. I think there's 24 to a pack. Put them on my shoulder and walk up the stairs and go put them away.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just walk with them and I lean down enough to get the balance on my shoulder and the hands holding in place, and then I'll walk up the stairs holding these on my shoulder. Knowing if I misstep, and the stairs are the metal grate ones where your foot grabs, so they're not
Oh,
smooth.
yeah.
So if I do go down, my knee's gonna get really shredded. So I have a tendency not to fall forward, even though it's a possibility. But you can't scrape your feet. Your feet have to be lifted up because they won't slide.
Well, that's
Right.
interesting. When we do that program on fear, we can bring in the opposite side of fear, because I've done that same thing. I've put myself in situations basically where you're going to get really hosed if something goes wrong and you have to do it right. So in a sense, you're using fear in a positive way. Yeah, I discovered one. You're talking about that bundle of sticks. So I was building raised garden beds with 2x8s, 16 feet long. And I'm thinking, how am I going to maneuver these things? I was going to build them on my back deck right out there, and it's up 3 steps. And I was like, oh man, how am I going to carry these things up 3 steps? So I just decided to try it, and I grabbed one of them and I walked right up the steps like nothing, because it was like, if you think about the flying
Yeah,
Walindas, they
little lenses. Yeah, you
pull.
get the balance just right, and it won't throw you off.
Right. You get the balance right, and it's actually that board was helping me be stable.
Giving you pushing your feet down, pushing your body weight down to be stable. Yes.
Right.
That's
I enjoyed it so much. I went up and down about a half a dozen times to that one board, going, well, I noodle around like John. I mean, how do we discover this stuff? We try stuff, we noodle around all the time. So I went up and down like, 6 times. I said, I'm onto something here. Maybe you could, use a board to, train yourself with balance. And yeah, my wife got a little wanted to work on the boxes we were building. So after a half a dozen tries, I went back to what we were doing.
had to go back to your project.
Yeah, but again, I use yard work a lot. I painted my house this spring. I build stuff. Anything that I can do to use both hands and challenge my brain.
Yeah, summer before last, I built 2 decks, one on both sides of the house, a 10 by 20 and a 8 by 10 on the front.
Right.
The only help I needed was augering the holes down. I didn't want to start that auger up and also wife pulling the driveway. I'm going on top of it because it won't stop or wait for it to run out of gas.
Yeah, and I got my brother-in-law. There were like 4 places in my house where I just wasn't comfortable going that high on the ladder, because I'm not supposed to be on ladders at all, and 5 steps up on an 8-foot ladder, that was my max. If I couldn't reach it, I'd let my brother-in-law do it. So you got to sometimes use the cognitive abilities that you got left with to say it would be stupid to do, to go higher, and cut yourself some slack and say it's okay. On the other hand, I'm 71 years old and was a stroke survivor, and I painted my whole damn house. I'm slow at it. I typically work for like an hour, and I sit down for 5 minutes until I feel like stupid, like, why am I sitting here? It's time to get back to work. But,
Right.
So and sometimes it's more than 5 minutes, but, am I fastest? Hell no. Do I keep at it? Hell yes.
Yeah, it takes a little longer, but I'm the same way. I had my AC unit went on my car 2 weeks ago, so I bought the part and I was changing it out. My son finally showed up and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I got this off already." He goes, "You got the part off already?" I said, "Yeah, the belt's off, 17 belts off. The 3 bolts are undone. I'm ready to slide it off the studs and go put the other one in." He goes, "You were supposed to wait till I got here." He said, "We want to do a YouTube channel with the one-arm mechanic." I said, "Will you quit it?"
So how many times did you cuss at your left hand getting that part off?
I didn't. I got it in there. I was using it especially to get the 17 belt off, because you have to do the tensioner out of the way, plus take the belt out of the way. So my left hand, I got the tensioner where I needed to be in the left hand.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Hold
there's
it back.
sometimes you have to hold something while you do
Yeah.
something else.
Now
All
make
this
sure I'm
is good.
not gonna injure it. It's got a glove on it. Make sure I don't scratch it up or tear it up. I don't need to put any cuts or anything on it.
Yeah, I
wear
sometimes do that with my affected hand, because I have like delayed sensitivity for like hot. I could put my hand on a burner that's hot. I don't, and I won't, but
You test
if
it
I
every now and
put
then.
my hand on a burner that was hot, it takes about 2 seconds before I get the signals. And once I get the signals, it's too late. So I'm real careful about that stuff. So yeah, sometimes I'll like wear a glove on my affected hand just because I'm worried about sensory input or lack of sensory input.
But I put a glove on every morning. Everybody says, "Why you wear a glove? Are you trying to be Michael Jackson?" I said, "No." I pick up sheet metal. I pick up wood. I do various types of stuff all day long. I can't just stop, put on this glove, take 5 minutes, put a glove on. I just put it on first thing in the morning. My hand's nice and relaxed, and it's there all day for what I need it to have. I mean, I get a lot of splinters in my right hand. It sucks because it's hard to get them out of there.
Yeah.
A lot of 2x4s, a lot of 4x4s. I end up getting a lot of splinters. Sheet metal. I've got my pants cut before, or stuff might slide. It might have like 4 or 5 pieces of sheet metal at the same time, and the middle one will slide because it's covered in oil, and my pants take the beating. So I take it just to protect this hand so I don't injure it any more than it already is, not being used. One of the bosses walked up to me one day. He says, I have to admire what you do because you work circles around most of the people here because this is what I am. He said, but literally you go to the left all the time. So you walk circles around everybody. I said, will you quit it? So I get this half a person stuff every day at work. It's just constant. And
People don't.
it's all done in fun, and we have a blast with it.
People don't pick on you unless they like you.
Oh, but they know that I do more work than a lot of people there. In the 5 hours I'm there, I'm always busy. If there's no work to do, I go home. I mean, there's no sense me sitting on the clock for nothing. If I've done all my cleaning work or shelf work or anything else, I just let the boss know, hey, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. Is there anything else you need done around the building? He'll probably say no. I say, okay, I'm going home.
Yeah, and I make up for my slowness by just sticking to it.
Yeah.
You keep at it. It's like recovery. I learned a lot
Exactly.
from recovery. You learn that, sometimes you don't see immediate results, but it's okay because eventually you will. And, I learned that if you stick, well, I knew this before from growing up with my paper route and mowing lawns and everything. But if you stick to something, you'll get there eventually. So people that give up. So maybe this is a good time to end it. You got anything else you want to add, John?
The biggest fear I always had was ascending stairs because I was afraid I was going to roll this ankle, which I had on a few occasions. But then you also realize when you roll it, your tendency is to lock that ankle up so it's stuck in that position. So it takes a while to get it back to being flat again. So I would practice stairs, especially coming downstairs, slower. But then I thought, well, what's my unaffected foot look like when it comes down? And it actually lays to the side, and when it comes down, it hits and lays flat. So my affected leg was actually doing the same thing of coming down on the side and laying flat when my weight hit it. So it wasn't trying to roll. It wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just my balance was off, throwing it to the outside, and it would roll over. So I just started coming downstairs slower, a little more concentrated, and to relax the ankle so I don't lock it up and cause myself to roll it. If I didn't lock it up and let the foot come down and just drop and lay flat. So I had to get confidence in that, a little bit of confidence in that left ankle to relax. Don't tighten up on me, just relax. Let the foot do what it's supposed to do. And that's a common thing, to tighten that ankle up, thinking you're going to roll it. So you tighten it up and you leave it in a position to where you are going to roll it because it's on an edge, way far on an edge. It's on the outside edge of your foot or the inside edge of your foot.
That's a big problem for a lot of people. It's what keeps people locked in AFOs, the fear of ankle roll. In some cases, I've seen people who just need an AFO.
You're right.
I don't know what they need to do to overcome that level. I've helped 2 people get off of AFOs and ankle roll. Both of them were, I would say, in the mid-range. I've seen people that basically walked on their ankles, completely on the outside of their foot. And AFO's, kind of like it's a double-edged sword because you can't do the exercises you need to do to get rid of it.
Yeah, mine was articulated, so I could rock back and forth, but I couldn't rock side to side with it.
Mine was too, and the heel toe pronation helps some, but it's still a brace that is preventing, it's intentionally preventing you from moving to, prevent ankle roll and stuff. So it's everybody wants to know, how do I get rid of this thing? Well, one way is to start walking around the house or someplace where you're real familiar with your environment and it's safe without it. And other than that, like you did, you pay attention to what you're doing. Try and figure out what the difference is. John and I are both friends with Leslie Hadley, a yoga teacher and stroke survivor, and she's got this idea about the teaching side and the learning side. So if you want to know what the learning side or the affected side is supposed to be doing, just take a look at the affected side. John, that's exactly what you did on the steps.
Yeah, I like the same thing.
There's nothing wrong with the way it's happening. I just need to pay more attention. Another thing I've done for that ankle roll stuff is get people to stand on that one leg, do a lot of weight bearing properly. I've actually done that on my hands and knees and grabbed their foot. I got big old catcher's mitts for hands. I just grab their whole foot and honk it in to where I straighten it back out, and I have them do a lot of weight, and I hold it there while they weight bear. And that actually, now it's not practical because who's got me to, get down on my knees for a 45-minute session and honk on your foot. But it does work if you happen to have a brother or sister or significant other or somebody that could
Right.
do that for you. Again, back to adapting. We aren't physical therapists. We want to get better. We try and figure out stuff on how we can get better at home, and then it has applications to other people.
Right.
So therapy's all around you. Adapt stuff. Don't give up.
When you were talking about washing dishes, we'll stand there on one leg. I mean,
Yeah.
just don't stand above, just lift it, and you don't have to pull the knee up in the air. Just get the foot off the ground to
Right.
get your balance back on the leg. I mean, that's or if you're standing at the counter for a minute, just lift that foot for a minute.
I do
Every
it.
little bit.
I balance on my affected leg while my dinner's getting reheated in the microwave. 3 minutes of therapy. You're standing there otherwise.
Right.
I started doing that. I went from like touching to light touching to single finger to hovering. And, I do it when I pump gas too. I make a little game out of it. I know
Yes.
all gas pumps pump at a different rate. I tend to go to the same place somewhat. But no matter where I am, I like to try and see how many dollars I can put in before I have to put my foot down. My record is $34, and
Half a tank.
yeah, it's 2/3 of a tank, yeah. But see, and what do? I can do it. I can turn around, and if I need to, I can look at the car. A lot of times I'll turn around, don't touch the car. I just look at the car, then my brain knows it's there for safety, and it knows it's there if I need to touch. And sometimes after you get somewhat good at this stuff, that's enough for you. It's kind of like the finger on the shoulder allowing you to walk.
Yes.
So back to adapt, do it at home,
Yes.
set up your own program. Therapy's all around
Yes.
you. Don't
Yeah.
give up. Break down a task into its components and work on the components. And just
Yeah. See what your goal is, and make what your main goal is, and then make small steps and make small goals to get there, and then combine them all up, and you've got the goal accomplished, and make another goal that's more than that.
Right. I actually told a guy, you want to try something radical? He said, sure. I said, don't intentional walk for a month. Do high stepping. I gave him all the parts of walking. I had him doing dorsiflecting and high stepping and some core work and some hip work. And I said, only walk like, what you have to in life. Well, he came back a month later and said, he'd been doing that. I said, well, try walking and let me know what it's like. He said, my walking's a lot better.
Yeah.
So I think you're better off, like I said, I used to think it was cheating, but I think you're better off breaking it down and getting to do all the pieces so you can put it together, because this is one thing we didn't touch on, but we will now before we sign off, and that is form is the most important thing. People go for speed. John will tell you that speed comes from proper form. When you train for speed, you end up falling on your nose. When you train for form, all of a sudden you're doing it faster. You don't even necessarily have out the stopwatch.
Right. I've found that with walking, if I'm trying to go beat my time, or I'll hear where my first mile was, and I need to speed it up a little bit. If I relax and let my body do the walking, my gait improves, and the next mile is actually faster, and I'm not even trying as hard because my stride has gotten longer because I've relaxed a little more.
And I have a video of a friend of mine doing that on the treadmill. he said he was just learning how to let go of the treadmill. And I said, how about we film it? I was terrified that he was going to like fall
Thank
on.
you, sent it to me. You
Yeah,
sent me that one.
yeah, Marcus on the treadmill. And, you know, you can actually see what's going on in his brain, on his face, and with his hand.
Right.
And he finally relaxes, and you can see his foot. All of a sudden, his foot starts coming up better too. It's
Yes. I feel the ankle roll, just roll through that foot.
the
Heel
first
to toe, just rolls right through there.
right.
And the hip, you feel the hip engage and twist and shift and everything else. It's weird to feel, but it's there.
And we've all had times where we're walking across the backyard or someplace, and we go, "Oh, wow, I'm walking perfect. I forgot I don't know how to walk." I had a therapist who, so sometimes the forgetting is a part of it. I had a therapist who said to me on in the rehab hospital, she said on day 2, Ralph, we're trying to learn how to forget how to walk. And I went, okay.
Does that mean you fall down?
Think about it though. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to go back to as much as you can to automatic mode. You know, we didn't think, none of us thought about our movements pre-stroke. Your brain just does it automatically.
You learned it from childhood on up.
Right. Yeah, back to like observing people. I see these 2 waitresses that I was having a glass of wine watching the sun go down, and I see these 2 waitresses, and they're walking across the deck. They both got cocktail trays with like 7 glasses each on them. They're walking without even thinking about balancing them. And then they come to the steps, and I go, what are they going to do? And they're talking to each other, so they're not even looking where they're going. And they go boom, 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 right down the steps, not looking at where they're going, looking at each other, carrying cocktail trays. And I just I wanted to go over to them and go, you don't realize. But they wouldn't.
I do that all the
Talking
time.
about it. And I'm
Yeah.
an old guy, so they think I was, you know, a pervert or something.
Yeah. Probably like that. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
Okay.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
And I think it was a great session, and hopefully people got something out of it. Mandy, come back.
I will. Thank you guys for inviting me. I enjoyed it.
Well, good. We
Thanks.
hope you got something out of it. Winnie?
I did. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Let's see, we've got a Chell Zubat who joined late. We start this at like 11 o'clock. So I think you came in around 12 o'clock. So maybe your time calculation's off an hour. I don't know if they even hear me.
Yeah, I don't know. I only see the name of it. That's all I see.
Yeah. Well, I want to try and welcome people and get them to come back. I think it benefits them as well as us.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing it for. I mean,
John, I liked your story. I had never heard it, but I appreciate that too.
Mandy, I thank you. It's a journey I didn't want to take, but I'm in it, and we're gonna make the best of it. I'm gonna take
Definitely an
everything,
inspiration.
everything I learned, everything I see, and that I will share with everybody that needs to see it or wants to work with it. I'm more of a drill sergeant type person. That's the way it's been beat into me. The therapists have been just, you can do this, you can do this, and I go and do it. Working with the weight vest, that really has modified every workout I've ever done. I mean, I didn't tell us the story, but I was actually doing the stair climb with the weight vest on and my flash costume on. And there was 2 high school students in front of me, and they were local swimmers at high school. And part of their training for the off season is to do the stair climb. Well, they started asking about the costume, and I smacked my chest, and you hear the steel plates on my chest, and they were amazed I was doing this with 40 pounds on. Well, they went back and told the swim coach. And then the way it runs the bops to the top and promotes it is their swim coach. And then they start telling the story. She goes, "Oh, who, John?" They go, "Oh, you know him?" And she came back and told me. So that within 20 minutes, I went full circle back to me just that quick. And those 2 kids were just so impressed. I was doing the stair climb against them with 40 extra pounds on, something they couldn't do.
Wow.
well,
That's great.
That proves that your whole superhero costume thing and
It's a big deal.
making an impact.
Yeah.
Well, she grabs me if I'm there when she sees me and puts me in the promo photos with Miss Indiana and whatever mascots are there also. I get pictures of them also, and we have a good time with it.
That's so cool. Seriously, that's really cool.
There's just two 15-year-old kids had no clue. Then they go back and tell their coach about this guy in his red suit. Oh, who, John? Oh, you know him? So it was just real funny to hear that. So she came up to me after the walk and told me about that. Because yeah, these two come back and started telling me about your story about the stroke and your steel plates and wearing the vest and the costume. And it was just too funny.
Mandy,
That's really cool.
you might be surprised how many people end up like myself and Michelle and with Dennis, and we have 4 or 5 in this group that are what I call veterans or pay it forward people. A lot of folks, once they get better, feel like, I don't know, obligation. That may not be right. They feel like they want to help other people not have as difficult a journey as they had. That's, a lot of what we're
Yes.
trying to do here. And ultimately, I want to take it back to where some of these ideas that we're inventing, we take back to the clinicians and try and get our voice heard, because like we said earlier, nobody ever mentioned neuroplasticity to me. Why don't a bunch of us figure out how neuroplasticity worked best for us, and then try and take it back to the medical community and to therapists and get them to focus on it. We have valid ideas. We're working on
Awesome.
all kinds of crap in our basements and our driveways and stuff, and it's valid. So
I think that is changing. There's a lot of talk of neuroplasticity these days, and we teach our patients about it all the time, and the students as well, and the 10 pillars and all of the different aspects of how to use that.
But what I found out is what's in their books is for like physical therapists, occupational therapists, what's in their books and what they're being taught at college is 30 years old. So they're not even, when they come out of college, they're not even caught up with what's really going on in the world.
Well, I'm glad to hear
Oh, no,
that.
I think that's changing, because especially now PTs have to have a doctorate, and they used to only have to have a bachelor's degree. There's a lot of changes in the education system.
I'm working with UIndy now to try to change their whole, how people view their college as far as the therapists when they're coming out, which the best therapists I had came from UIndy, but they're also working on a group now to, what can we do to change this? Because the PTs aren't trusting the PTAs as they come out. So they're trying to get more confidence in those coming through. So they're trying to make a change in what's coming through.
Well, I think it's great if they're starting to talk about neuroplasticity and preach it, because then maybe they'll listen to us. I
yeah.
don't know if they're not listening to us because they don't want to hear what we have to say. I think it has to do with the fact that we're not speaking up. That's why we're trying to organize some kind of effort to speak
That's
up.
especially true in my world, because people with aphasia and other communication disorders, just by the nature of the disorder, can't
Yeah.
feel like they
Speak
can't
up.
contribute as much as they'd like to.
Right.
Well, I know even when I was going through my original therapy, the 2 therapists looked at me and said, "We're going to practice a floor transfer. So get on the floor." I said, "How?" They said, "Well, however you get the floor, get the floor." So the book shows to come up on your unaffected leg. A patient had showed them they could come up on their affected leg. I think it was actually easier. So we're going to show you both. You do what's best for you. So there was some feedback from a patient at one point in time to change that up a little bit. But they said the book says this is what we're trained to do, but this is what we've come across actually might work better. And actually coming up on my affected leg was actually better, because the pushing off this affected leg and back to my right arm, I had the balance. If I used my unaffected leg, the balance was off to the far side, to my affected side. So
Right.
what they learned from another patient was correct, but what the book says may work for somebody else, not always for me, the right person though.
I always push up with my affected leg. I started because I thought it would be a good way to build it up and keep it built up. But
Yes.
what you're saying, John, is that tripod that you do when you come up off the ground works a lot better with your affected leg and your strong knuckles. When you do
Right.
it
So
the
you
other
can
way.
either grab and pull or just stabilize yourself coming up, one of the two.
Right. I recently did one coming up on my stronger leg, and it's a lot stronger. I mean, I know it's stronger, but my brain doesn't like it. It's just,
No.
13 years of coming up the other way. It's like my brain's saying something's off here. This isn't right. I don't feel like the balance is right. I have real good balance, so I don't worry about falling. I can actually get down and get back up without touching.
Yeah, so you, the work on your knees, yeah.
Yeah, I just dropped him. I just do a deep knee bend, drop one knee, drop the other knee, and then come back up. But I mean, it's a parlor trick, but when people see that, they go, hopefully they go, wow, if he can do that, maybe I can get better.
Right.
That's what I hope. I used to not show that kind of stuff because I considered it parlor tricks or bragging, and I had several people in my group say, no, show it,
No,
do it.
show it.
So I've had to get over that. So anyway, it was a great meeting, and hopefully we'll see everybody back
Yep.
next week.
Yes.
And
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
all right.
Mandy. Thanks for coming in.
Have a
Thank
great
Winnie.
day.
Thank you, Ro.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
Winnie.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Better end.
Bye. Nice meeting you.
You too.
I'll be in touch, Carolyn, about
Okay.
maybe you joining us like John in John's seat. You know, talk about
Okay.
doing what you do.
I'd be happy to.
Great. Well, I've actually got
Thanks.
a pretty good schedule going forward.
Good.
Yeah. Next week we got Jenny Golder on attitude. After that we got Med Rhythms on music therapy. I have a doctor that had a stroke and an occupational therapist who had a stroke, and they're both going to come on and talk about both sides of the bed, if you will. You know, laying in the
Cool.
bed or being the person standing in the
Yeah.
bed. You know. The doctor I don't think was a neurologist or stroke doctor, but still. And the other, the occupational therapist was an occupational therapist, so I don't know what happened to her hand. She also is not practicing anymore, so she doesn't have all the licensing stuff like you would have. I mean, we're not naive here. We know if we invite you in, you have to talk in generalities, and people are not going, not going to ask you, what do I need to do, because you can't give out specific advice to people you're not seeing.
I generally do. I'll say like, well, for most people, this would probably be useful. That kind
For
of
most
Yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah, you've got a way around it. Yep.
That's a good way around it, but I'm not inviting these people in. I'd love to. I'd love to have a physical therapist and an occupational therapist on retainer and have them come in like once a month and actually answer questions. But I need the retainer money. We'll get there.
I do, well, actually it's Tuesday, every Tuesday at 4 Eastern.
Yeah,
I do
named
a
last.
show and I take viewer questions every time. So
Right. Yeah, but you answer them in generalities. You can't do anything to mess with your license. Or
no,
so
I'm pretty specific though.
as a group owner, I'm not going to ask anybody to. That's not my intent to invite them here and put them in a professionally awkward position. So,
Right.
all right.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
See you
again.
next week.